Hello there. I hope everyone's day is off to a great start. Welcome back to our HxGN Hacks series on the Overview 360 screens. My name is Rebecca Shostall. Tyler was unavailable today, so I am stepping up to help wrap up the series. So thanks for joining. We have some, a few updates to share today. We also want to cover a couple of the additional widgets that we haven't reviewed yet, and then we'll wrap up just revisiting some of the initial setup as it relates to users and user groups. So I will be sure to keep an eye on the chat. Definitely chime in if you have any questions. So feel free to raise your hand. You should be able to unmute yourselves. But like I said, I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. So for session 5, so for today, we're going to cover the final 2 widgets. We'll revisit some of the initial setup. And I did want to share a couple of updates. So in a previous session, Tyler reviewed the reports widget. And one of the questions was which reports are available to be used in the reports widget. So the system displays all reports available on the menu of the user, so the user that's setting up the widget. So all of the reports with a class of Rep B or Rep C in a subtype of R. The caveat is that the report must have a select object and a select org report parameter. So the reports will not show if there's a mandatory parameter that does not have a default value. So that information was provided directly from HxGN because I know some questions came up like what drives which reports are included to select from. So the primary factor is the class of Rep B or Rep C in the subtype of R. Also, this was a few weeks ago, it was brought to our attention regarding zooming on the Overview 360 screens. We did check with HxGN on that as well. And essentially, if you set the applicable or your preferred zoom before logging into EAM, essentially the Overview 360 screens will render based on that zoom as long as the zoom in or zoom out is set before logging into EAM. So I tested it, confirmed it works as expected. So that's helpful for users who may primarily be referencing one of the Overview 360 screens. So because I know previously, let's say you started to zoom out, the layout of the screen did kind of switch from say 2 columns to 1 column. So as long as you set that zoom prior to logging in, you should be good to go. And then as far as the recordings for these HxGN Hacks sessions, the team is working on getting the entire series published to YouTube. So be on the lookout for those recordings, just so you can always refer to them at a later date. So let's talk about 2 additional widgets that we haven't touched on so far. The first is the Equipment Health widget. Now this widget is only available on the Equipment Overview 360 screen, and it shows the condition information for a selected piece of equipment. That means the equipment rankings with the type of condition index. So if you happen to be using the condition index to populate the condition score and index for your equipment, you may want to add the Equipment Health widget to your Equipment Overview 360 screen. Now the chart colors are controlled by the 360 color install parameter. And I know we touched on that install parameter, so it's used for a handful of the widgets. And there are different condition protocols when calculating the condition index. Just for reference, in the example that I'm going to show you today, the condition protocol for that calculation is age. Okay, so let's go ahead and just, I can show you what the setup looks like for this particular equipment health widget. Okay, so I'm just going to navigate out here to the Equipment Overview 360 screen, and I'll go ahead and work from that same overview template that Tyler's been using. And we're going to go ahead and go back into edit mode, and we're going to add the Equipment Health widget. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click into options and then edit. So because this is a preset widget, meaning that it's dependent on the condition information being populated for equipment, basically the only setup is if you want to change the chart colors with the install parameter or update the widget title. If I simply just click submit here, it's going to default to equipment health. And then what I could do is I could always go in and personalize the widget with my preferred color. Now you'll see here there's a message that no equipment is selected. So it's for a specific piece of equipment. So if I come up here to select equipment, and let's say I select one of my engines, this is going to make the widget equipment specific. So you see now that I am seeing the condition information for my engine 01. Like I said, this is dependent on that condition information being defined for the equipment, and that's done through the equipment ranking type of condition index. Now, the last widget to touch on is the heat map widget. Now, this widget is available on both the Equipment and Organization Overview 360 screens. The requirements are similar to the line chart widget. The default color is actually blue, and the default shape is rectangle. This particular example, we just set it to green and the circles instead of the rectangle. What you see here with the condition rating per class criticality, so I know Tyler's probably referred to it, but HxGN does have a very detailed brief on the Overview 360 screen. And this is just one of these sample queries that was provided by HxGN. So you would need to have a query, and the requirements for that are outlined in the brief, or you can do essentially a grid with a data spy. If this is a new thing for you, I would encourage you to kind of reference the example that HxGN provided, which is this condition rating per class criticality, just to give you a framework for how those queries must be written. But since you guys have reviewed the line chart widget already, just keep in mind that the requirements for the query are similar to that line chart widget. But we can go ahead and add this to our template as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and select Add Widget. And this one is a heat map, and then Submit. And I'll go ahead and just move this one down below. To edit this one, okay, this is where you can select the query code, or it could be a grid with a data spy. So I'm just going to pull in the query that's been provided for the condition rating. It will pull in the description of the query that's selected, but you can always modify the widget title. As you've seen in a couple of the other widgets, you can adjust the width and the height. I'm just going to leave those alone for now. And the default color, if you don't select one, is blue. But if you prefer to select a color, okay, these are the options that are available. And the default shape is rectangle, or you could, if you prefer, you could select circle and then submit. And with the other widgets, you always have the opportunity to go in and personalize it with that banner color. Now, this particular query is looking at the condition ratings for the equipment, but depending on what that query is, essentially querying the database for, you could always, use the heat map widget. I would say the equipment health and the heat map, in my opinion, are kind of more of the advanced, widgets. So for the equipment health, you would have to be using equipment ranking to calculate the condition index. And then for the heat map, you would just need to, have the knowledge and expertise to create the, write the queries or set up the grid with the data spy. So I'm going to go ahead and save this template. And let's touch on a couple of things here. So this takes us back to, I believe, the first session where we talked about the user group and user setup. So first of all, the screens may need to be added to the applicable user groups. So just make sure that your users have access to the Overview 360 screens from their navigation menus. This would be for desktop users, so the Overview 360 screens are not available on mobile. And then there are a couple of user-specific permissions. So the two that you see in the screenshot there. So allow editing overview templates. This is essentially saying you're a template administrator. So as long as allow editing overview templates is checked and prevent personal overview is unchecked, then you have the ability to create templates that are public or that are going to be associated with user groups. If prevent personal overview is unchecked, then essentially it's saying that users are not allowed to customize and create their own templates. So they would just be able to select from the templates that are provided. So those two check boxes are per user, okay? So keep in mind, if you're not seeing them on the user setup screen, you may need to unhide them via Screen Designer. Next, so let's say you're responsible for creating those templates that are either public, meaning they're available for all users, or perhaps they're going to be user group specific. Once a template is created, it can be attached to a user group on the user group screen overview templates tab. So if I had a template that was specific for my sysadmins or particular, maybe specific to the maintenance team, whatever it may be, then on the overview templates tab on the user group screen, you can grant access to those templates. If the template's public, then they're going to see it, still be able to select that template. But maybe like, for example, here, if I had one specific to, say, our supervisors or the administration team, then you could go in, create the template, and assign it to the applicable user groups without making it public. Now, this next one, I'm probably just going to demo. It can be a little bit confusing on how to modify either a public template or a template that's associated with user groups. So let me just demo this to you, because to be honest, it took me a while to figure it out myself. So I am going to come out here to the Organization Overview 360 screen. And my default here is this HxGN Hacks work in progress. I'm just going to click on the overview template lookup, and you'll see that I have a HxGN Hacks that's public and a HxGN Hacks that's a work in progress. So if I were to open the one that's HxGN Hacks, what do you notice? There's no edit mode available. We did check with HxGN on this as well. Basically, since these templates are public, or maybe they're not public but attached to user groups, it could cause some issues with the user experience if a template's being modified while another user is kind of referring or referencing that template. So here's what the recommended process is for updating a public or shared template. I would go to my work in progress that's not public or attached to user groups. So these two checkboxes are unchecked, and I can edit this particular template. So this is my work in progress template where I could go in and make changes. So maybe we'll just make a simple change where we'll change the layout. So I just updated the layout. So I'm going to go ahead and save this change to my work in progress. So I just saved my work in progress template. And then I'm just going to click Save Again, okay? But I'm going to essentially override that existing template, okay? So not the work in progress, I'm gonna override my public template. So if I click Submit, you'll get this pop-up message. So the overview template already exists and will be overwritten. Essentially, I want to override the existing, okay, with the changes I just implemented. And we can see here that now my HxGN Hacks template is showing, the new layout that I just modified. So that let's call it that temporary or the work in progress template can then be used later for edits. You could always go in and delete it, but essentially you would have the one template that's public or attached to user groups, and then you would have the one, that you would make modifications to and then override the existing. Subscribe to the channel, the Digital Thinker Inc. YouTube channel, for additional learning content, webinars. Like I said, the entire HxGN Hack series will be available. Also, feel free to visit streamlineconference.com/2025. So our Streamline User Conference is being held in February, so February 24th to 27th. We'd love to have you join us. We got a great lineup in the works. So on that website, you can view more about the agenda, what to expect, and even register. And then we are planning for 2025. So webinars, workshops, HxGN Hacks. So make sure you subscribe to our mailing list. So dti-academy.digitalthinker.com, just to stay connected about future events. Definitely appreciate your time and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.